program. Advice and opinions expressed during the program are solely that of Heiar Insurance, not WBEV or Good Karma Brands.
Well, thank you, Wally, and welcome everybody into Taking Care of Business. Today's Senior Solutions with Heiar Insurance, and nice little music to bump in with. We want to have ourselves a merry little Christmas, and I imagine less to worry about on your brain right now, so Christmas can be something you can look forward to a little bit more right now, Matt Heiar.
Yes, the last couple weeks I might have been a little Scrooge-like, just with
Understandably.
Stress and lack of sleep, but yeah, now I'm looking forward to the holidays.
I imagine just 8 hours of just blissful right after it was all said and done.
Yeah, it's just, you're just talking and talking and talking, and then you get home during dinner and you just kind of sit there in silence.
I imagine. Is this, I was wondering about this because a lot of times when I get done with my day here and I go home, we're sitting around the dinner table, work inevitably comes up. Mm-hmm. But it's stuff like, oh yeah, I had fun talking with Wade this morning about this. We talked about aliens today or whatever. There's a lot of stuff that you do that you kind of can't talk about.
Absolutely.
And then there's got to be stuff that, maybe is frustrating that only somebody in your field, your industry would understand.
Right, exactly. And that's why, I'll tell my wife a story and stuff, and she'll be like, oh, because she doesn't get it, and which she shouldn't, obviously. But she's been helping out at the office now every Tuesday, so she's starting to understand the lingo now.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's all in the family, I guess.
I mean, and that's kind of a lot of what goes on over there. I mean, obviously, you've got Sandy Heiar there, you're there, and you guys have a nice team there that's kind of like a family, a lot of hardworking individuals.
Absolutely, and that's why, we try to be the one-stop shop, for your retirement, for your Medicare, for your health insurance, if you're under 65, life insurance, the estate planning with Rob, and then your investments we have a team with also. So we just try to, simplify retirement, which I know that's hard to say.
Right.
But at the same time, just giving you the peace of mind where it's one phone number, it's local, stop into the office, give us a call, and you're going to hear back from us. I mean, that gives people peace of mind, absolutely.
So my first question is, knowing that we've just now gotten through the election time frame for choosing next year's plans, and those will go into effect January 1st?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so knowing all that, we've now gotten to that end. The cutoff's hit. Inevitably, what happens if somebody comes to you now and says, but Matt, I forgot to call you. Oops, what do I do? Are they locked into something? Do they have nothing?
Well, typically they have something.
Okay.
They just didn't review it, and we would have to review it next year. There is a couple situations where we might be able to pull something off, through some hoops and stuff. So, I mean, if you're still curious, just give us a call and we'll see what we can do. But yeah, worst case scenario, you have to stay on the plan you had. Okay. And it's not the end of the world, but, we might even schedule a time in January to review your insurance and just kind of have a game plan moving forward. And then I guarantee they will not miss the annual election next year.
I was saying, that's definitely going to be tough on you if your old plan wasn't quite working for you to begin with.
Yeah,
and now you're stuck with it for a little bit longer.
Yeah, it can be frustrating, but it's almost impossible not to know that it's the Medicare time. I mean, turn the TV on.
Right.
Look at your mailbox. Look at your email. I mean, it's just they find you.
I was say I've been seeing ads for it on YouTube, Hulu, everywhere where ads can be supported. Something's there.
Yes, and it's just crazy because, like, this year we've been dealing with the 1959ers. If you're born in 1959, you turn 65 this year.
That's a big deal.
Yes, but now towards the fall all of a sudden, I'm starting to deal with my 1960 babies. So anybody that's born in 1960, you are going to get a lot of mail here soon.
Dad, if you're listening.
Yep, and they will find you, and basically a lot of it's obviously solicitation, read the fine print. But, just give us a call and we can kind of lay out your options, pros and cons of each one, kind of educate you on how Medicare works, signing up for Medicare, maybe Social Security, and just taking it step by step instead of just getting all this mail and trying to do it yourself. And, it almost helps if you don't research it, because researching it, just in the state of Wisconsin, we're a little bit different for some plans than we are in other places, but there's no secret plan out there. We are an independent agency, so we contract with every company, unfortunately. But we have to because they're one-year contracts, and maybe next year this company is the best. So That's why there's no secret plan out there. What's good for your neighbor doesn't mean it's good for you. So we just try to simplify it as much as possible, if that's even makes sense.
I mean, I obviously, if anybody's seen me, they know I like to eat, and I think of what you do as kind of like it's the ultimate buffet. Every possible thing is there in front of you. It may not all be what you like.
Mm-hmm.
It may not all be what you want or what you need, but you're probably going to find something that's pretty close to what you're looking for dinner.
You and analogies, I like it, but no, it's we try to condense the buffet. So it's
Right.
like we don't have as many options.
And that comes from asking those questions and getting to know the person ahead of time. Right?
Correct. Yes. So that's why, like in our initial meeting, we'll talk about plans maybe, but we like doing the government stuff first. That's why 90 days prior to your birthday, we got to sign you up for Medicare. We can give you some literature to look at the plans, but we'll slightly go over that, but we're going to have another meeting. We're going to talk again, so you don't have to memorize that. It's just very difficult to jam everything in 1 hour appointment. Here's Medicare. Here's how you sign up. Let's sign up. Here's a drug plan. Here's, oh, this is a supplement. This is an Advantage plan. Which one do you want? And it does happen, but it's very rare. It's only if your spouse is already on a plan and you're like, I want that plan. Then it could possibly be done in one appointment. But yes, now start scheduling your appointments 90 days prior. And if you are on Social Security prior to turning 65, the government will automatically sign you up for Medicare.
That's so nice of them.
Yes. Well, they'll do that for you because they're going to start taking money from you.
Right.
But at the same time, we don't always need Medicare. If we have group insurance through a spouse or we're still working, we might not need Medicare yet.
Right. But then you got to tell them not to turn it on, right?
Yes. That's where if they sign you up, that doesn't mean, oh, it is what it is. No, we can sign the back of the card, mail it back to them, and then we can get rid of the Part B, which that's the one that costs money. And next year's Part B premium is going to be $185 a month. So that's what
good chunk of change.
Oh, it is absolutely. And we talked about that. It was grinding my gears. Kind of cost of living increase for Social Security went up 2.5%, and your Medicare went up 5.9% from 174.70 to 185.
Yeah, that is perfectly sound math.
Yes, and people are
Sure.
like, that doesn't make sense. Why'd they do that? I wish I could honestly explain that.
Yeah, luckily, you can say I didn't make that decision.
Yes.
I'm separated from that, but that does mean sometimes you got to be the bearer of bad news that those changes are happening because people will get a letter telling them that, right? They'll get a statement or a notice.
Absolutely, they will.
And I'm sure that's when they come running to you going, why is this costing me more money?
Yes.
And you're like, well, the government said so.
You're right, and that's why everyone's like, I don't want to see an Advantage plan. Don't even show me. And it's like, for me to sleep at night, I have to show you both. I have to show you your options: an Advantage plan and a supplement, because it comes down to affordability, comfort with the plan, and our health. And not our health so much today. Family longevity, what your brothers and sisters had. That's how we make a decision.
Right.
So your answer might be different than your wife's. So you do not have to have the same plan, which I know we're so accustomed to, but there is no right or wrong answer to this. I want you to come back because we have to educate you on that, because no matter what you pick, someone's going to call you crazy. Why'd you do that? I did this, and it's so much better, and it's maybe that made sense for them.
And the last thing you want is anybody to come back to you after the fact and be like, Matt, you never showed me any of these supplemental plans.
Exactly.
And you're like, well, I didn't think they were necessary for you. Well, let me choose what's necessary for me. Whole argument, right?
Yep.
So better to give them more information and pertinent information than nothing at all.
Correct. And it's honestly, out of those three, affordability is the largest, because, Medicare is $185, no matter what. We haven't even picked any plans yet.
Right.
And then sometimes people are like, yes, I want that supplement. That looks great. Let's do it. Then we get to the medications. And it's like, whoa. And it's just ridiculous, the cost of these drugs, where some people, if they're meeting the $2,000 maximum for next year, they're paying about $158 a month in drugs. That is a lot of money.
Yes, it
they're
is.
They're paying more for their prescriptions and their plan than their health insurance, which covers $1 million cancer year. So it's just, that's where we run into problems. But supplements go up in price every year. So if we're already on the high end of your budget, it might not make sense. So that's where people, hear horror stories about supplements, Advantage plans, and it's like, we have to pick what's best for you. There isn't a right answer. And that's why like what my mom taught me when I first got into this industry, it was education. I do not want someone coming back to me and saying, so my neighbor said this, did I do the right decision? And it's like, we picked this because of X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And I never really have that call, which is kind of like a pat on the back, it makes you feel good knowing that you did your job. You were transparent with them. They were transparent with you, and they understood why they selected what they selected.
And that's definitely a key thing, is explaining that why, because it not only, in my opinion, does it build trust in knowing you and getting information from you, because you know why you recommended it. It's not just Matt probably recommended it because he makes more money.
No, that is not at all what matters, because I make more money on a product, that costs more. It's like, but someone only has $1,000 Social Security. That's morally wrong,
Right.
Once again, we live in a small town. Now, sometimes that might be the case, though, where it's the best situation because it's going to be least out of pocket because we're doctoring a lot.
Right.
So like that's why it's very frustrating when everyone's like, well, yeah, you should go with this. They'll bring a friend in or a family member. I did this.
Right.
You should do this. And it's like, well, step back. Let's start with signing up for Medicare. Are we turning on Social Security? Are we not turning on Social Security? So, and that's actually one thing I should reminder. Technically, there's one enrollment period that's going on right now. I know.
Okay.
It's not Medicare though.
Okay.
It's for the marketplace health insurance.
Right. The Affordable Care Act,
Yes.
Obamacare, whatever you want to call it.
Exactly. It's a new name every year.
Yeah,
but
35 different names. We love it.
But yeah, that'll be going till Sunday. So that's, if you want, you have to sign up before December 15th if you want it to start January 1st. Then the government, once again, I can't explain this, they extended it for another month. So December 16th to January 15th for a February 1st start date.
Okay.
Which, in my mind, with insurance, you're starting a deductible for 31 days in January and then potentially switching a plan.
Right.
Doesn't make sense.
No.
But so that's where, and then, just recently, obviously, with the election and all the political stuff, everyone's been wondering, like, is the Affordable Care Act still going to be there?
Yeah, we've heard a lot of different things. I think recently I saw a big news story where they said, oh, well, this senator came out and said, we said Medicare wasn't on the chopping block, Social Security wasn't on the chopping block, but now we're saying we're not taking anything off the table. Anything could happen. And I think I heard an audible gasp from a large collection of the population.
Yes, and it's, obviously I don't have the crystal ball, I don't know that, but regardless, the Affordable Care Act, it has to stick around. Now, can it be tweaked and, a couple rule changes? Absolutely. I would like that. There is some things that, I believe that could solve some problems that we have because it's the federal government, so it's the federal marketplace.
Right.
So it's a national average, and we have people what I call the gray area, where they have $20,000 in income. Perfect. I put it in, then it kicks them to the state. It says they qualify for Medicaid.
Okay.
So then they forward it to the state of Wisconsin. The state of Wisconsin sends them a bunch of information and paperwork to fill out. They fill it out and stuff, and all of a sudden they call me back and they're like, I was denied. So it's a national average. So maybe if you were in California, you would qualify for their so-called Badger Care or Medicaid, but not in Wisconsin. So you're in the gray area. We almost have to lie about your income to get you up to $24,000, where you can qualify.
Right, because that all has to do with like where the state's average poverty line is, or all those other things.
Yes, and they're all different.
Right.
Yeah, so it's frustrating on that part because it's like, and some people are like, no, I don't want to be on Badger Care. I want to be on this. So then I called the marketplace and I'm like, so what do I do in situations like this? And they did say you have to skew. They didn't say lie, but it's essentially you have to skew their income because the application for the Affordable Care Act is for every situation possible, every life event. So they just said, yes, you have to raise the income. I'm like, well, what if that's not their income? They're like, well, they'll receive it back at tax time. So if you overpay $20 a month, you'll get it back at tax time. If you underpay for, $20 a month, you'll have to owe it at tax time. Everything gets rectified at tax time. So to solve that problem, the gray area,
Right.
what if they went to the states? The states, we still had the federal marketplace, but it was individualized in 50 different states. So then if I did fill someone out application out for the state of Wisconsin, they would have our Medicaid level.
Right.
It'd be updated all the time. So it's like if they actually were kicked to Badger Care, they would get it. So there wouldn't be this.
That makes sense.
Yeah, there wouldn't be
Have
this.
you thought of running for office, Matt Heiar?
No. Another thing people ask about is, will the next president take away pre-existing conditions? That is 100% never going to go away. That would be the worst thing ever if someone made that decision. Insurance was in a really dark area for a while when, people would not be able to get insurance because they had cancer.
Right.
If you're 25 years old and you have cancer, that's not your fault.
Right.
You should be able to get health insurance.
Makes sense to me. Absolutely.
I'm sure insurance companies love me talking like this, but it's so true. I mean, there is, so I don't know if the government has to help subsidize, with these insurance companies for taking on pre-existings, but still, it is not someone's fault if they are sick or have an autoimmune disease or they're doctoring a lot. That is, not their decision.
Right.
The bigger the block of business, the better it is for insurance companies. So the healthy people outweigh the, unhealthy people. And that's how insurance works. So the bigger the pool, the better. But yes, I do not see it going away. I just see, could there be changes? Absolutely. But I just don't know, things with Congress. Like even if they passed it, in February, that'll happen in 2 years. It's
right.
Just like the Inflation Reduction Act of 22, the last step was that prescription drugs, you can't spend more than $2,000.
Right.
In 25.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that, could be done, and I think it would be good, but it's not going to go away. You can't just say tomorrow that no one has insurance.
Right.
So to get rid of something, you have to be able to replace it with something. So unless they have something ready to go for January 1st, they're not getting rid of it.
All right. I might get shot for saying this, but you got to have more than just concepts of a plan. You got to have something ready to go.
Yes. A lot of things are said in election years, but
right.
It's just throughout history, a lot of things,
right,
stay the same. So
we've seen that for sure.
We better read the disclaimer.
I was just going to say, yeah. I do want to remind everybody this is a paid program, and advice and opinions expressed during the program are solely that of Heiar Insurance, not necessarily WBEV or Good Karma Brands. So I wanted to kind of dive very briefly into, you mentioned, insurance companies may have to get subsidized or whatever. I'm sure a lot of people out there are saying, well, subsidies for insurance companies means taxes are paying for things. But we all know insurance companies are making money hand over fist because, we just heard United Healthcare made $20 billion or $22 billion or whatever. Mm-hmm. So they're definitely not hurting for profits. And we all saw how that's played out in the news recently. So do you think there's ever a point where, the government can kind of step in and be like, okay, we need to start regulating pricing differently or to help bring that down?
Yes. So that's exactly what it is. It's a trickle effect. Like you see what, these charges are for these surgeries or procedures. Mm-hmm. Outpatient procedures could be up to $100,000.
Right. For outpatient.
Yes.
Not a hospital stay. Right.
Exactly. So it's a trickle effect where we basically just got to go to the negotiating table and say like, hey, here's how much it costs to replace a hip. But once again, we have to do it in our demographic because I bet you if I get my knee replaced in California, it might be different, or New York, it might be different than, in Madison here.
Right.
So, but that is so sophisticated and so much work. That's a lot to, start switching things up. But yeah, I mean, the billions of dollars, because the government is already subsidizing these insurance companies.
Right.
If you're on the Affordable Care Act, you get a tax credit based on your income. So basically that money is what the government, your tax dollars, is giving to these insurance companies. So they're getting money regardless.
Right.
So that's why I wish I was like, yes, we should do this, and this is the way. It's not that there's so many moving parts, but I mean, look what, like even a company that sells bedpans to a hospital. I bet you I could get that bedpan cheaper if I went to this local store.
Right. Exactly.
So it's where we got to start to, control the cost of things. And I know that sounds like, okay, now you're controlling costs and it's hurting these people. But I mean, if people honestly want national health care, it'll never happen here because of just the cost.
Right. I mean, we've all heard the stories of, I just had to get 2 stitches and a Band-Aid, and the Band-Aid was on my bill for $40. I can buy a box of Band-Aids for $2.
Yes. It's a lot of Band-Aids.
Yeah, it's a lot of Band-Aids. So do I need to start reselling them to make the money? Like, do I have to be the in-between for the hospitals? Like, and I've heard there's a lot that goes into that $40 Band-Aid, administration and this and that and everything else. And it sounds like all of those are things that are not going to get fixed in a single Congress sit-down session.
No. I mean, yeah, that's why, like, there isn't a right answer, but, like, all the things I'm saying right now are, like, all the things that, the government has to think about before they just start to, make changes.
Right.
So it's not like you can just sign a piece of paper and, like, well, no one has insurance now. And that's the same with Medicare and Social Security. It's, like, everyone's like, well, are they going to have Medicare now? Yes, of course they're going to have Medicare.
Right.
But everyone hears about Medicare's Social Security are going to run out, and yes, it's been stressed many times, but we've went through one of the biggest stress tests with our baby boomers. It's the largest demographic of people, and we're on the back end of it right now.
I was like, because a lot of them are starting to age, and
Yes.
some are aging out.
Yep.
By aging out, it's a nice way of saying not here anymore.
Yeah.
And so, that is going to correct itself.
Yep, and it still survived, but I think, Medicare could, with a little bit of the, price controlling of this, we could guarantee that it's going to be here, longer. Yeah, I mean, the government shouldn't have touched Social Security, obviously, back in the day, so that stressed it out a little bit also, but at the same time, we have basically the majority of baby boomers on Social Security right now.
Right.
And it's still here.
Right.
So I don't see it going away. And once again, if it did go away, it'd be anarchy. I mean,
yeah, you're talking how many hundreds of thousands of households that would suddenly have no income?
no income. And then what about me? I've been paying my whole life.
Right. I want what I put into it.
Exactly. So, but yeah, that's why, we're hearing all these things and we hear it every election cycle. It's what's true, what's false, what's, like, I shouldn't say propaganda, but like, just trying to put a dig in on the other side. And I just don't see that happening. But yeah, I mean, slight tweaks to certain things I could see, but just the fact that they're abolishing, the healthcare system, it just needs scrutiny. It really does. And I think it's just gotten out of control. And obviously with the news of that CEO, passing away, like that was a big reality check, where people are like, wow, like, what is the story? What was the motive, and we don't want it to get to that. No one deserves to,
Right.
Have that situation happen. But, yeah, that's where I've had this conversation so many times the last couple of weeks and they're like, what do you think? And it's, I'm not the government,
Right.
but this is like certain things where like, yeah, you should be writing your senator, and you should be talking to the politicians, in your local area and asking them questions and what are their thoughts on it, because this is who you're voting for. You're voting for your local representative to represent you and your opinions. So yes, if you have, grief, with, the healthcare system or how it works, that we should be talking to the people that are voting on this.
Right. And I mean, we in general, like I know what I've learned from you about healthcare, retirement, Social Security, Medicare, all of that, just from listening to this show and hosting this show with you. That's my extent of knowledge. Obviously, you've got more knowledge than I do, so it can be very comforting to come to you and hear you say, like, yeah, let me tell you what I know from my years of experience and what I've seen. And are you going to have all the answers? No, but you might be able to steer us in the right direction to at least, feel a little better about it.
Well, yeah, and the marketplace health insurance, I mean, every appointment just seems like it's the same appointment where, we put in your income, and so if you want a lower deductible plan, like something similar to a group insurance, you're going to pay an astronomical price.
Right.
So the majority of people are picking the cheapest copay plan, but it has $9,200 out of pocket. So that is not a check you just write.
No.
So, and it's scary. And if it's a household, it's $18,400. So if you have, you and your wife are on that plan, you have a car accident, it's $18,400.
Right.
Just because you had to pick the affordable plan. And that's where we need, something to correct this. Like another thing I would think of is it shouldn't go over, your max out of pocket should not exceed X amount of percentage of your household income.
That makes sense.
Yep. So you have a household income of, just say 100,000, just simple numbers, it can't exceed 10% of it.
Right. I mean, that's good enough for the mortgage industry. They don't want your house payment to be exceeding a certain percentage of your income. So,
yep. But it's just, so like that's when Obamacare originally came out, the plans, there was a lot more companies involved with it. And that's why I think getting more localized, I think we would get more local companies, competing against other companies with it. But it was lower deductibles, and it was great. And the pre-existing, that was the number one thing, the best part about Obamacare right there was, hey, if you have cancer, you can still get insurance.
Right.
It's not your fault. So I think that, because in having a $10,000 max out of pocket for a household of 100,000, I could see that.
Right.
Okay. And it should just all be about, the numbers, because it's just not fair for someone that can't afford to have their doctoring a lot and they can't afford to have that lower deductible plan because it's so much. Right. That's where I feel terrible. And it's like, well, it's either this or this, and
right.
It's some people don't feel comfortable with that, and that's what makes it frustrating. So yeah, that's me venting, but that's the conversation I've been having, and nothing has changed and nothing is on the docket to change, but it could use some change. Absolutely.
Right. I mean, I think we can probably, before we move on to another topic here, we can kind of say that the Affordable Care Act or the Federal Marketplace or Obamacare, whatever you want to call it, it's not the perfect solution, but it's currently a working solution.
Absolutely. And it's the best thing about it was, they will accept anyone, and that's what I need. Another thing, well, since I'm venting,
do it.
I think you should be able to get insurance at any time of the year. It should be an endless enrollment period. If you are seeking the government for health insurance, I think you should be able to get it.
Because now, like, a lot of times you have to have, like, a life change event.
Yep.
So somebody has to die or be born or gain a job, lose a job, things like that for you to make these kind of changes.
Yep. But like, I think now I know people are like, well, you can't crash your car and go get auto insurance. It's like, no, not so much that, but like then put it in a 30-day window, like, okay, you can get it, but it won't start for 30 days. Fine. But I just think I've had so many conversations with people where I'm like, well, you got to wait till November for a January 1st start date. And it's like, so they're just going to have no insurance?
And if this is something that's kicking up in February, March, whatever, that's not great.
No, it's not. And so that, there is things that like, oh yeah, it could be tweaked. They'll never get rid of it though. I think just, alter it. It's a government program. It's almost like saying we'll get rid of Medicare. We can't. This is the health insurance for people that are 65 and under, for small business, for self-employed, for farmers. So it's got to stay. But because it was just the Wild West back in the day.
I was saying, because, I mean, those demographics you just mentioned, those were areas that were incredibly underserved when it came to health insurance. I mean, if you were a small business or a farmer, you're funding that yourself if you can even afford to fund it yourself.
It's one of the biggest income constraints we have for people retiring when we have to find them health insurance to bridge the gap to Medicare. They can't believe the numbers. They're like, wow. And it's like, that's how much your employer was paying.
Right.
People take, group insurance for granted, but on the back end, your employer is paying 60, 70, 80, even 90% of that premium besides what comes out of your check. And it's huge. And it's your prescription drug, it's your dental, it's your vision. These are huge amounts. And that's where it's like, when is enough enough? The deductibles, even for group insurance, just keep going up just so the premiums are lower. And it's like, but the premiums aren't lower.
Right. It seems that they're both going up.
Well, and we're complaining about groceries and gas, but the inflation with, the insurance costs have just gotten out of control. And that's where we just need some guidance and someone to be looking at this. And I hope things are, scrutinized a little bit more on that, because it would help. And then we won't have situations like that CEO, and stuff, because that's just wrong. You don't, you're the CEO of a company, you would never expect something like that. And And that's where people are showing these charts. We're like, well, this company had the most denials for
Right.
claims. They're also the largest in the country.
Right.
So it's a play on numbers.
Right.
It's now if they started doing percentages, that might be a different story. But yes, they were just showing like this is how many denials they had in the last year. Well, they're the largest in the country.
Right. I think back to just to throw another analogy out there when we had Favre as the quarterback in Green Bay. Everybody said, well, he's thrown more interceptions than any other quarterback. He's also thrown more passes than any other quarterback at that point.
Yeah, also had more touchdowns.
Yeah, he was top in a lot of categories. Sometimes the numbers are there for everything.
Yeah, but that's I just don't see a lot of change happening. It's not something that happens overnight. It has to go through Congress, the Senate, and then obviously the president's desk. So and once again, even if it was passed right away in February, it's probably for years down the road because you need to create a system and structure and have like agents like us, on board and understand what's going on. It's not something we can next year. It's different. It's not going to happen.
Right. And there's a lot of education that goes into what you guys do, not just on the medical side, but when it comes to things like Social Security, how much you can fund for your retirement, what taxes will be. Of course, it can't be a flat thing where it's like it's always a 5% tax or a 10% tax. It could vary based on income amounts and all this other stuff. So there's a lot you guys have to take in. How do you find time to learn all this?
I'm a nerd and I read a lot. But yeah, like it's tax time now. This is where everyone's like, okay, do I contribute to my Roth? It's like, well, that's not tax deductible. So are we looking for a deduction? Is it HSA funds, where we can deduct it? Are we going to max out a traditional IRA? And we have until April 15th. So we can make that decision. So like, say it's February, I can contribute to my traditional IRA up to the maximum amount for 2024. So we have a little time.
Right.
But these are the things we have to start thinking about. And especially that's why it ties into the health insurance. It's based on your income, the premiums. So what makes the most sense and how are we going to get our income where we want it to be? So, yeah, I don't know exactly how I find time to do it all.
You say you're a nerd. You and I are definitely nerds in different regards, to say the least. But, if obviously this has become a passion for you and what you do and helping people with all this, which is awesome. So now let's move into that helping people with that post-career situation. Because I know I've said this before, I plan to live forever or die trying, which means a lot of years that I plan on sticking around. I don't plan on working all of those years. So I need to have something to make sure that I can still purchase the goods and services I want to live a lifestyle that I feel comfortable with.
Absolutely.
And that sometimes, or really should require, I don't want to say require, it should necessitate a reason to stop in and talk to you guys, because we don't know what we don't know. And we may think that throwing all of our money in a pillowcase and burying it in the backyard is a good idea, but it's probably not going to be what we need to do.
Highly not recommended. But
There you go.
but yeah, that's why we create a playbook basically for your retirement. And I mean, everyone loves maintenance free, right?
Oh yeah, why not?
Yeah, it's like so, and that's our goal is to just try to simplify it. But we want you on board. We want you to understand what we're doing, what the strategy is, why we're picking this insurance, why the income plan is set to this, why we're turning on our Social Security at X date for one spouse and not the other, or maybe we're turning both on. I mean, that's why we create a playbook. And can it change? Yes.
Right.
I have people come in and say like, oh, my father passed away at 63. I'm turning my Social Security on 62 no matter what you decide. Okay.
Right.
And then that's what we have to build around that now.
Right.
So, yeah, there isn't a right answer. And that's why, what I do is really fun because every day is different. And you get to meet a lot of people and you get to see them in the community. And that's the best part.
I know recently I was having a great conversation with a buddy of mine who he is a kind of a outside observer of the crypto world. And I know I've gotten your views on crypto before, and he was the first one that broke to me this whole like Hawk coin thing, like the Hawk Tua girl was pushing.
Goodness.
That shot way up and then came way down, and like people just lost money, left and right. And for him, it was like watching, your favorite TV show or your favorite movie. It was so entertaining for him to watch these people cry and complain that their fake money didn't go anywhere. And what you're working with people is like, hey, let's look at finding ways to make your real money stay real money.
Yeah, and preserve it and make sure it's there when you want it.
Right, because things like that fluctuate crazily. But that does mean sometimes, in putting in investments that are going to go into, the markets. Mm-hmm. And
Absolutely.
so, markets can be volatile, but in general, they kind of always generally kind of go up, right? Just
it's not indicative of
right.
Past years are not indicative of future, but yeah, it's but that money is more long-term money.
Right.
Like we need liquidity, and that's huge when it comes to retirement. Things happen. The furnace went out. Where do we pull from?
Right.
If you have it in a bunch of CDs, we're gonna have to take surrender charges. Or if you have it in an annuity, it's like, well, we didn't plan for this. And that's where it's like, oh no, it's right there because we have that account sitting there, waiting for it, where you can write a check.
Right.
So and some people don't have that account, and that's where we try to create that account. Or, we love buckets, and it's so more so just having, even if they're all the same risk tolerance, because the buckets, but it's just having different options or tax consequences for each bucket. That's huge, and just knowing, or do we finance this? Do we not finance this? There's a lot of different situations, and that's where we try to simplify it, and we advise, and do you have to listen to us? No.
Right.
But your accountant might not be too happy.
Right.
And we're listening to your accountant also, because everyone has to be on the same page. So your advisor, your accountant, and your insurance agent are your best friends in retirement.
And this is why you've said when people come in and see you, if they want to talk to you about Medicaid, Medicare, supplements, all that fun stuff, but then they also want to talk to you about retirement, you make those separate appointments.
They are definitely separate appointments.
There's a lot of information that it ties into each other in some areas, but they're also very vastly different conversations.
Yes, and they have two different regulators, and they don't like...
and regulations are important.
Yes, so we have to prove to regulators that they are not commingled and they are separate, but we want to be the one-stop shop. It just is another appointment.
Right.
But absolutely, yes. We want to make sure that we can take care of you, and we just have one place to go, and that's what we've been striving to do, and my mom started it, and, I'm trying to live up to her.
Right.
She's the celebrity, so. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, no, it's been a ride, and it's really cool. It's just the full circle of, people I used to see at church and teachers, and, now I'm, teaching them.
Right.
It's just full circle, and it's really cool. And yeah, I saw a lot of clients out at the Christmas parade.
There's a lot of people out at the Christmas parade.
I didn't see you. I didn't get to go up. I saw Wade.
Yeah, I was upstairs the whole time, and I will say, at McKinstry's best view up top there. Absolutely. Impressive number of floats and entries in the parade this year.
It was cold, and I was like, wow, this is a long parade. But, all right, I already got my favorite float, but...
I mean...
It was a hands-down winner.
Yeah, Newman Pools did a great job. Inside baseball a little bit. A member of the team over there at Newman Pools actually sent an email out to me and two other members of our team here saying, so did you guys see our float? What'd you think? Like, he was very proud of it. How do we step it up for next year? What do you guys have for ideas? It's like, I don't know why you're asking us. All I know is it was amazing. And, not to take anything away from any of the other floats. Like, everybody did a really great job.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of beautiful stuff out there. But, to see them just really go all out for what I consider to be our small town parade.
Yes.
Because I know Beaver Dam's big. We're the biggest town in Dodge County, but we're also the biggest town in Dodge County. So.
No, I know. But like, all of a sudden I look up, I'm like, I felt like I was at Macy's.
Yeah.
Like, I just could not believe that. That was well done. Well done to the folks that, constructed that. That was really cool. The kids loved it. And yeah, I mean, between the snow machine and the band and wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff going on there. But that really illustrates, like you said, you get to see these people out and about, and you get to see them smiling and having a good time. They're not worried. They're not freaking out. They're not sitting there going, oh, man, do I put this much into my Roth IRA? Do I not? What can I draw from? They're not focusing on that at the time. They're having a good time, and they're enjoying what's happening. And part of that's because of the service you guys provide. It really is kind of an act of service in many ways. And yes, obviously, Heiar Insurance is a business, but you're not in the business to do like the Bernie Madoff people. That's not who you guys are. I know that's a 4-letter word in some areas, But you guys are really there to be those local advisors. You're really there to say, hey, it's your money. We want you to have it and keep it and spend it however you want. And not everybody's vision of retirement's the same. Not everybody's vision of what they need medically is the same. You know, every individual person is different. And it's just a matter of, we want to help you achieve what you want to achieve.
Oh, yeah. And it's like I just went into an establishment at the parade, which I was kind of by. And, you know, people are like, well, I know you don't want to talk shop. And I'm like, if you have a question, just ask a question. I mean, that's why I'm there, you know. And
it's a great precursor to every conversation. I know you don't want to talk, but
that is a reward of you choosing to go local. I mean, that's what it is. It's like, no, I'm not going to be like, nope, not today. You know, it's absolutely not. Like, if it's like pretty extensive, I'll be like, hey, we probably have to have an appointment about this.
Right.
You know, but yeah, if you have a question, absolutely, you see me in public, ask a question. I mean, that's why we're here for. That's why you chose to go to somewhere local. Yes, you have that ability to, if you see me in public, yes, ask a question. I am not going to start scolding you. Absolutely not. Like, I appreciate it. I love it. Like, this is what I do, and I really don't have a time clock. So,
and definitely better to ask those questions than come to you later and be like, hey, Matt, how do I fix this?
Yes, I recommend you, please. I'd rather solve it in like a 30-second conversation or a phone call rather than, you know, trying to problem solve.
And there are a lot of weird nuances out there. I know recently I found out that a member of my family needed to replace some kitchen appliances because they had a electrical thing happen where all of their appliances went out. Fridge, stove, microwave, dishwasher, all of them.
Yikes.
And it fried that and the breaker box. So it was a bit of money they had to spend. And that's not something that they just had sitting around to drop. So they did the thing that I always think is a dreaded thing to do. They dipped into their 401k, and they had the ability to. And they thought, well, it's my money that's sitting there, so I can just pull it and use it, and didn't know until after the fact because they just, you know, pencil whipped all the paperwork. That that's going to be paid back to their 401k, and it's going to come out of their paychecks, and now they got to rebudget and replan for whatever. And his thought was, well, if I had known there was a different way to do this or whatever, and apparently there could have been some other ways they could have done it. But those are things where if you don't know, because it's not your forte, it's not what you do. You know, I don't expect you to come in here and tell me how to do radio.
Absolutely not.
And so I definitely wouldn't come over there and assume that I know better how to do your job than you do. So that's what having those conversations, asking those questions. It may seem like an emergency that you need a new fridge or a new stove or whatever, but before you just write that check, talk to somebody.
Yeah, and it's the classic John Moser. You don't know what you don't know.
There you go. That is a very true fact. A very true fact. Well, unfortunately, I do know that we are reaching the end of the show, and we've got to close things out so Wally doesn't get yelled at for kicking us into the noon hour.
Okay.
We don't want to do that. But next week, is next week Christmas?
No,
the following week.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll see you next Friday then.
I will be here next Friday.
I'll be expecting to hear an update on how the shopping's going next Friday.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't ask you this week because I know it's probably the same question or the same answer I'd give.
Christmas Eve shopper.
There you go. The views and opinions expressed during this show are solely that of Heiar Insurance, not necessarily WBEV or Good Karma Brands.